Alright everyone, Sony has just recently released their 2018 financial report, and sure enough, PlayStation 4 is still doing incredibly well. In fact, all of Sony's doing very well, but for PS4 specifically, 2018 was a very good year for the platform. We saw God of War, Spider-Man, Detroit Become Human, all of these games coming out to critical and commercial acclaim, of course. And so in this video, what we're going to do is look over that 2018 year, crunch some numbers a little bit, see where PS4 is going to be in the future, but also get a greater understanding of how far PS4 has come since that original 2013 launch. As of right now, Sony has announced PlayStation 4 shipments have reached 96.8 million units. It's important to note that units shipped does not mean units sold, and there's likely still a few million consoles that are sitting on retailer shelves waiting to be sold. However, that's not really a huge deal because, let's face it, at some point they will be sold and Sony will reach that 96.8 million and then some. But let's put that number into perspective. Sony is almost at 100 million PS4 sold, and they'll almost certainly hit that this year. PS4 is now well beyond PlayStation 3 sales, with the console topped off at around 86.9 million units. What platform comes next? The Nintendo Wii at roughly 101 million units, and right after that is the original PlayStation with 104 million. Unless something dramatically bad happens to PS4, it's going to exceed those numbers within the next 18 months, which would officially make PS4 the fourth best-selling console of all time. Number 3 is the original Game Boy at 118 million units. Considering Sony is expecting to sell 16 million units within the next year, that will bring the platform total to 112.8 million. Even though this is a projection, this places the console fairly close to that third spot by April 2020, which Sony has also confirmed they will not be releasing a next-gen platform within the next 12 months, so we can expect PS5 won't be ready until probably late 2020. Conjecture aside, it's highly probable that PS4 will still be relevant up to that point. We still have Death Stranding, The Last of Us Part 2, and Ghost of Tsushima coming. Then there's the simple fact that Sony supports their previous console well into the life cycle of their new one. Even if sales slow down substantially, we could very well see PS4 hitting 120 million units, taking that third spot. However, that might be the most it can do. The DS and PS2 are taking that second and first spot respectively, and both are at over 150 million units. At this point, PS4 hitting those numbers is probably unrealistic, but the third spot isn't half bad either. In terms of software sales, there has been roughly 940 million PS4 games sold. This would mean on average every PS4 owner has about 9.7 games. This figure is a little more complicated to put into perspective, as not every manufacturer releases their software sales, and current data online may not accurately depict total sales due to not tracking digital content. Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 are currently believed to have the highest tie ratio, with about 11 games sold for every one system, Xbox 360 being slightly higher and closer to 12 games. Below that is Xbox and PS2 at 11 and 10 games respectively. PS4 would be right after, taking the fifth spot, though PlayStation Vita is a great example of potentially taking the number 1 spot if we had accurate game sales, because despite Vita not selling that much hardware, Vita owners are very dedicated to the platform and buy a lot of games.
It's clear that people love Vita once they get their hands on it. In the US, Vita owners have on average purchased more than 10 games, and Vita customers also reflect the strong appetite for digital downloads, with nearly 60% of all Vita title purchases made through the PlayStation Store.
Either way, an attach rate of almost 10 games per system shows people not only love their PS4s, but they're loving the games too. Now, let's get back to that 2018 financial report. Sony has posted a net profit of $8.26 billion, which is a new record for Sony. It's their best year ever, and this record was previously broken in their 2017 fiscal year, so they've done it again this year. And that's largely due to their video game division, as that accounted for 34.8% out of all of Sony's other ventures. After that is music and their financial services. When looking specifically at the gaming division, you'll see this is the best year yet as well. Operating profit for games and network services is $2.81 billion. This is a 75% increase year over year. PlayStation Plus subscribers are also up, but only slightly, increasing to 36.4 million subscribers from 36.3 from the third quarter of 2018. And while we're on the topic of the third quarter of 2018, I think now's a great time to mention PlayStation Now, because for the first time ever, as far as we know, Sony has finally told us how many subscribers are actually on the service. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know I've always said this: Sony doesn't tell us those subscription numbers because they're probably not that impressive. Well, Sony's chief financial officer Hiroki Totoki mentions that since the service's launch in 2014, it's actually grown 40% year over year. Okay, sounds pretty good, but then he tells us that the service currently has 700,000 users. 700,000. We have 96 million PlayStation 4s out there, and 0.72% are actually using and paying for PlayStation Now. That is horrendously low. And I mentioned the Q3 of 2018 because in that third quarter, there was actually a report that came out about total revenue for subscription-based services in the video game industry. This included PlayStation Now, Xbox Game Pass, EA Access, things like that. And surprisingly, PlayStation Now had the market leadership with 52% of that total revenue. However, in that report, we could already get an idea that all of these services weren't really doing that well, because the total revenue between everything was $273 million. Sure, sounds like a lot of money, but between all these multi-billion-dollar companies and these big services, that's actually incredibly low. And PlayStation Now is actually only accounting for about 120, 130 some odd million of those dollars, so not all that good. PlayStation Now still needs a lot of heavy lifting to do, and we just did a PlayStation Now video on this channel where I tested it with a 5 megabit download speed and a 100 megabit download speed, and it didn't matter which one I had. They both weren't really all that great. Gamers are still very reluctant to stream their games, unsurprisingly. But Sony's CFO Hiroki Totoki did have this to say: "In this way, Sony Interactive Entertainment has accumulated a wealth of expertise in the game streaming space and plans to leverage that expertise to continue providing the ultimate game user experience on console and in the game streaming space. SIE is committed to the vision of making PlayStation the best place to play by delivering to users the best content in the best manner possible. Game streaming is one important way to achieve that. We have leveraged our strong relationships with publishers to provide over 750 PS3 and PS4 titles to our subscribers, although this number varies by region. This number is more than 3 times as many as the second largest game subscription service provider by number of titles." If anything, this means one thing and one thing only. Despite market leadership, Sony and Microsoft and Google Stadia and anybody else that wants to try, they still have their work cut out for them when it comes to streaming. But hey, at the very least, the rest of Sony's report card looks pretty good. Hearing these numbers sounds impressive, but it's even more astounding when you make some simple comparisons. For reference, the 2018 fiscal year doubled 2013 back when the PS4 originally launched. $21 billion in total revenue against $10.4 billion. And that $10.4 billion back in 2013, remember, that's revenue. The actual profit for 2013 was instead a $188 million loss, compared to 2018 where the profit resulted in $2.81 billion. Perhaps the most impressive metric we can look at, though, is that PS4's $2.81 billion profit in 2018 is actually more than the entire total of PS2's profit, which is $2.22 billion. That's right, everything the PlayStation 2 made in terms of profit is $2.22 billion. The PlayStation 4 in 2018 made more than that. That's almost unbelievable to think, especially when 13 years ago, Sony was in a financial hole and hemorrhaging money with the PlayStation 3, to the point where many investors simply were not convinced that the company would be able to bounce back. And yet, here we are today, with PS4 being responsible for most of the company's profit. It really is to the point where Sony Corporation understands the importance of PlayStation and the need to go all in on this division. So it's extremely encouraging when you see that in Sony's projections for 2019, one of the reasons why they expect less profit is because of the increase in development expenses for the next generation console. It's abundantly clear that PS4 proves just how relevant the console space still is, and that's with digital sales increasing, streaming services coming in, and PC gaming on the rise. Sony has also done a fantastic job in demonstrating the desire for big-budget single-player games and just how profitable they can be when done correctly, and we can surely expect more of this on PlayStation 5. Nintendo Switch is also a great example. It's doing very well as a hybrid machine, allowing traditional TV and handheld play. It appears as though it's not just consoles being relevant, but that the demand for games anywhere and everywhere is greater than ever. There's no doubt about it, PlayStation is alive and well, and I just hope Sony doesn't lose sight of this momentum and enters the next generation with the same desire for success as they did with the PlayStation 4. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't yet, of course, please subscribe for the best PlayStation news, reviews, and updates that are here on YouTube. And also follow me on Twitter at Mystic Ryan. I'm always wasting my days away over there. So head on over there. Let's have a conversation. If you're bored, of course. And that's pretty much it. So I'll see you all in my next video, and you take it easy.